Hi there, viewers. Today, I'm joining a conversation with author Susan N. Williams, the author of Last Scene, Art, and other books that she has authored. It's a pleasure to have Susan on the show today. Welcome on the show, Susan.
Thank you, Peter. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to finally have you featured on P English Literature.
I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah. So, Susan, could you tell us about your book, Last Scene, Art? How does this book come about? I mean, what inspired you to write Lux Scene Art?
Sure. So, Last Seen At is my first novel. It is a work of fiction.
Oh,
It's something I've always enjoyed writing, and a few years ago, I just decided to, go for it and complete a full-size novel. So, Last Seen At is based on the premise of, as we know in our world today, a lot of people meet online and have interactions online with people that
oh,
eventually they may meet in person, or sometimes they just have a virtual relationship. The majority of those relationships, I like to think, end well, and you have a long lasting friendship, or otherwise. I personally have some friends who have met their spouses online.
wow.
But the premise of the book is, we have these chance encounters, and what if it doesn't go the way we expect it to go? So the book is told in first person. The first half of the book is told from um, the main character's perspective.
Mm,
And then the second half of the book is told from the other person's perspective. And
wow.
then what happens, um, and what their feelings are on both sides of that. So there's a lot of twists and turns and some drama. And I think it's a good read and has a surprising ending that the readers will enjoy.
Well, that's great. Everyone love the concept. I love the concept of it. The word Lux Scene Art dash dash dash
Yeah.
or dot dot dot. It's kind of amazing. That's
That's
what you would see if you're on
yeah.
WhatsApp and someone's is not currently online, or what you see on Facebook and stuff like that. It will show Laxing at so time.
Yes, exactly. That's kind of a shout out to the social media, and also that theme kind of continues throughout the book,
Yeah. Oh
so
wow.
it's good. Yeah.
That sounds amazing. So Susan, I also see that you have another book titled The Good Life Among the Belties. For readers like me who haven't read the book yet, and for other viewers who are watching, without giving much information away, could we have a sneak of what we'd expect picking up The Good Life Among the Belties?
Yeah, so The Good Life Among the Belties is a very different book from my first book, Last Seen At.
Oh,
Last Seen At was very emotional to write. There were some dramatic scenes, and like I said, some twists and turns. So I really wanted to write something more gentle.
mm,
And my husband and my family and I are fortunate enough to raise a very special breed of cattle for
oh,
beef. And it is a Scottish breed. They were imported here from Scotland, and
oh,
they are called belted Galloways. So the English call them Belties. Here in the States, we call them Oreo cows after the famous black and white cookie, because they are a black cow and then they have a white stripe around the middle. So my family has learned a lot as we've raised these cattle. They're a very interesting breed, and we're proud to raise them. But the premise of the book is that, what if someone doesn't have a background in a farm and is suddenly thrust into this position where they need to take care of these animals? So my character, Clive Walters, is an IT professional
mm,
from the US, and his family heritage is from Scotland,
oh,
and he inherits this cattle farm in Scotland. And here is a person who knows everything there is to know about computers and
Mm.
IT and that type of thing, and hasn't really worked in nature or on farms. So he has to make a decision about, carrying on his family's heritage and accepting this wonderful opportunity that he gets. And so it twists and turns. The story is set both in the US and in Scotland. And
Wow.
eventually he finds some help from an unexpected person from his past.
Wow. That's quite amazing. And your question actually got me thinking about something different. I wanted to ask you, how do you get the inspiration to write your books? Because this sounds very amazing to me. And I'm just curious to know if maybe they're written based on some experience or some things you've seen or from something different. How do you get the inspiration to write your books?
Yeah. So, for the good life among the Belties, it's definitely our personal experience working with the animals. And there are some stories that are based on our learnings as we've
Oh,
raised these animals and tried to understand the best things to do for them. But Last Seen Ad is a very, very different book from that. And I don't have a personal experience with that, um, other than, just having an online presence, and sometimes people um, approach me, or I interact with people that, um, I think we're all so busy, but sometimes we should stop and wonder about what is that other person's story, and what
mm,
is their truth,
mm,
what makes them make the decisions that they make, and it might just be decisions that you make at that particular moment in your
mm,
life because of certain stress or things that you're going through.
absolutely.
Um, but that was really intriguing to me. So, and I like to write just things that interest me. So I don't really cling to any certain genre. Yeah,
Mm.
just things that I find interesting. I like to create a story around.
That's amazing. That's quite amazing to know. At this point, I would love you to show a copy of the book to the camera if you have one there.
Yeah, I do. So this is Last Seen At.
Yeah,
So
beautiful
like you
cover.
said, it's got the little
Yeah,
dot dot
dot
dot
dot.
like on social media. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's that one. And the cover, is kind of dark because there's a sense of mystery and intrigue in that book.
Mm. Wow.
And so this book is
A good
The
life.
Good Life
Yeah.
Among the Belties. Yeah, so you can see a man, standing like in a pasture in the early morning. Um, and he's kind of got his shoulders slumped. He's got a lot on his mind and a lot to figure out through the book. So it's interesting to see his journey
Mm.
throughout the book, and eventually be successful in his new life. So
Wow, that's quite amazing to know. Thank you so much for mentioning this. Now, Susan,
thank
as
you.
authors, we all have different ways of reacting to feedbacks and criticism of our works. I'm curious to know your opinion about criticism. How do you react to negative criticism of your books, if you ever had one in time past?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I think that authors have to be very brave, regardless of what you write, whether it's fiction or poetry or even nonfiction. Um, Going back centuries, even people pick apart the written word and they criticize that, or they try to find falsehood within that word.
Mm,
And honestly, there may be. But we also have, an artistic license to express ourselves, and that might be based on our experience. But I also think that it's only limited by our imagination as well. So when I get feedback, of course, we all, um, are pleased when that feedback is positive, but we understand that not every reader is going to like our product. We
absolutely.
understand that,
Mm,
So when I get criticism, I really try to just remove myself from it personally and really read into that and see if there is something there that I can learn and take away for my future readings. The one thing I like, though, honestly, is of course to get good criticism, but I would rather have feedback with comments versus, like on Amazon, you get the star ratings, and
Mm,
sometimes people will just choose, three. Okay,
mm,
so you sort of liked it, but they don't put any comments. Um, but I like for people to say what they liked about the work or what they didn't like about the work. That
yeah,
gives me a greater understanding.
yeah. That's great. I so much love your ideas and opinion about criticism. It's quite good and great to know, quite learning. Now, I'm also curious to know if you experienced any challenges while writing your book. If there is any, could you share with us what challenge it is and how you ultimately overcame it?
Yeah. Yeah. So, Peter, my biggest challenge, and this may be true for other writers as well, is time. Um, so writing is not my full-time job.
Mm,
I mentioned earlier we have a farm, and you can imagine how much time that takes. But my full-time job is that I'm a radiology administrator at a very large hospital in Kansas City. So I work full-time, many, many hours at the hospital, and so that leaves little time for writing.
yeah.
And I think that's why, it's taken me a few years to finally write a novel instead of just short little pieces or journaling. So, um, but I enjoy it, and writing is a passion. So, when you love something, you will
Mm,
find time for it.
good. Yeah.
So it takes me about a year to get a first draft of a book. Um, and that's okay, and I
Mm,
spend a lot of time going back and forth with it. But um, at this point, writing is not my full-time job, so time is my biggest challenge. But one thing I like to do though, and um, I've written a lot of short stories, so maybe like 3,000 words or under,
mm,
which seems, um, doable with my schedule. So what I can do when I'm writing a larger book is just look at it like it's a short story and just do it in small pieces. And then I also get that feeling of accomplishment of getting something um, completed and ready for the next step.
yeah, that's great. I love your challenges. I see that everybody have that time of a thing. Time, it's very, it's very limited. And sometimes you'll be like, oh my God, I need to do this. But there's no time to do it. I wish to do this, but I just don't have the time. So I can relate to that. Can relate to time being a challenge.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so I also want to ask you, Suzanne, could you tell us what publishing is like for a published author like yourself? What are the challenges you've encountered in terms of marketing your books, and what are the mediums you've utilized so far in promoting both books?
Yeah. So I think that goes back to the last question too, is time. There's so many marketing channels that individuals could do. If you have the time to do, your book talks and your Instagram and all of these things. So personally, I've used as well as personal connections. I try to get out locally to the libraries.
Mm,
And then we have like some craft markets and things where local producers, like farmers markets, and individuals in our community get out and sell the goods that they have.
mm.
So actually tomorrow I have a book signing at one of our
Wow,
local markets. So I'll be able to interact with people and
amazing.
sign books. So I am working on a website, but I haven't gotten there yet. So
Mm,
it's just, and learning as you go, because not every medium is right for your book or right for the individual as an author. Some
mm,
things like making videos for book talks and things like that. I'm not super comfortable doing that. But we'll see. I'll try some of those things, and if they pay off, great. But if they don't, then I can explore other options.
That's great. That's great. It's quite amazing to hear your feedback to this. I actually want to ask you, Susan, apart from Laxin Art and The Good Life Among the Belties, do you have any other works you've authored or currently working on?
Yeah, so I mentioned short stories. So I do like to post short stories on readsy.com, which a lot of authors might be familiar with. They have really great resources for authors and learnings about a variety of topics. But they also have a short story contest each week, which you don't necessarily have to
Hmm.
join the contest in order to participate, but they give you writing prompts and writing ideas. So I like to do that. And so on Readsy, I do have a blog of all my short stories. So
That's amazing. That's kind of amazing to know. Now, I want to ask you, Susan, as a published author, what sort of advice do you have for other writers who are still struggling with publishing a book like yours? What do you tell people in this category?
yeah, so I think my advice and the thing I struggled with was I just needed to write it. That was the bulk of it. It's like, okay, I've got to get the time and just knock this thing out. So
Mhm.
as you write it and you go back and you edit, and editing I think is scary for authors because we kind of have this idea that editing means taking things out and paring
Mhm.
it down. For me, though, editing a lot of times is adding additional information and expanding the characters or
Mhm. Wow.
expanding the scenes.
Yeah.
But I think it's okay to um, just write and get something on paper, and then part of the editing process maybe is adding things to that. One other thing that was really inspirational to me was, of course, to read. I've been a lifelong reader and I learned so much from other works, whether it's fiction or nonfiction or even academic publications. I think it helps to expand my vocabulary and learn new words and learn new ideas. That's been really helpful. Another book that I would recommend to any aspiring writer is Stephen King. As you know, he's a horror writer here
Yeah.
in America, a very famous writer of horror. But he has a book called On Writing, and it's partially his biography, but it's also about the writing process, about writing as a craft. And you may have read it, but honing your writing. And it to me, it was just really inspirational. Oh, do you have it?
No,
There's Stephen King. Yeah.
this Mr.
So,
Messages. This is the only
and
copy of his
I
book that I
purchased the
have.
audio book. Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, yeah. So on writing is another great one, and I purchased the audiobook because Stephen King reads it. And so it's really great to hear that in his voice.
Wow. That's quite amazing. That's quite lovely. I love your advice to this question, and I'm hopeful that viewers, including myself, would love to utilize it. Now, Susan, at this point, I would love to ask you if there is anything that you'd love to share with the viewers about your books that we couldn't mention in this interview. I'd love the viewers to know. Is there anything?
Anything additional about my books? Just, I would love for people, like I said, to get feedback, and I think that just encourages
Hmm.
all writers. Whenever I read a book, even one that I've picked up at the library, I try to go online and find it somewhere and post a review. I do read every review that readers leave for me. And like I said, I really appreciate engaging in that way with them and getting their feedback. I mean, and I'm not, I not so naive to think that I'm going to appeal to every reader. I know that I'm not. Um, but these are my stories, and I'm the only one that can tell them.
No, no,
So I try to have an authentic voice and to share that. So
it's great. And on what platform can viewers get a copy in case we have people that are interested in getting a copy? On what platform are they available on?
yeah, so of course Amazon. I have both books there in paperback and Kindle.
Okay.
And then I have both of them published in ebook form on Smashwords.
Okay.
And so then you can get Smashwords is a platform, and then it goes out to other booksellers as well. So like Barnes and Noble and Coco and um, all of those books, Google Play, Apple Books, that type of
Mhm.
thing. So
No.
yeah, but if
Yeah,
you prefer a paperback, then Amazon or Barnes and Noble. So
that's great. And I've left a link in the discussion part of this conversation where viewers can get a copy directly on Amazon. So thank you so much, Susan Williams, for accepting the invitation to be featured on P English Literature. It's a pleasure having you on the show.
thank you, Peter. The pleasure's mine. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's so great.